In this video, you will see what you can do in Malta in 5 days, hear about honest personal experiences, what was great and what was not so great, and some tips if you want to plan to visit the island too. Welcome to Atlasita, a channel about traveling. Well, mostly in Lithuania, as I love showing you around my home country. But I also like to share my experiences of other places I visit. I love the Mediterranean region and its climate, so there are quite a few places I have traveled to and lived for a while on the opposite sides of the sea. This time we visit that teeny tiny rock in the Mediterranean Sea, Malta. Everyone's saying that Malta is tiny, but when I started planning the trip, I kept hearing remarks that it is of the same size as Vilnius. I just couldn't believe that information. And after checking it, I found out I was right. It is not the size of Vilnius, it is actually even smaller. The land area of Vilnius city, the capital of Lithuania, is 401 square kilometers, while the land area of the whole country of Malta is 316 square kilometers. Well, that was even harder to believe, but I guess the data doesn't lie. Anyway, even though Malta is so small, there is plenty to do there, and during our 5-day trip, we didn't manage to see it all. But we tried our best. Just a quick note about the type of trip. It was a girls' trip with the 4 of us, me, my sisters, and my mother. Our goal of the trip in early October was to enjoy some nature, beaches, and of course sightseeing in Maltese towns. A day trip to Gozo was on top of our wish list as well. For this purpose, we stayed further away from Valletta and other densely populated areas. We chose to rent a large apartment in Meliaha, a small town in the northwest, far away from the busy metropolis around Valletta. We thought it would be more peaceful here, and it kind of was, compared with the Valletta area, but the island has busy traffic everywhere, even at 6 a.m. Malta is actually one of the top 10 most densely populated countries in the whole world, so keep your expectations in check. Now about that traffic. We had a long debate about whether to rent a car, take public transport, or even just drive everywhere with Bolt or Uber. The main problem for us for renting a car was that the Maltese drive on the left side of the road, which we are not accustomed to. Actually, Malta doesn't have a very good reputation for its traffic. The busy traffic combined with the narrow roads, extremely so in some areas, parking difficulties, and the southern style of driving can be complicated and stressful. On the other hand, public transport seems like a nice option, but it has its own limitations. The best connections are to Valletta, but starting from smaller towns, it is much more complicated to reach other sides of the island, with multiple bus changes and an unreliable schedule. Public transport still can be a good choice for those who stay in Valletta, but it seemed like a waste of time to us, as the bus routes from Meliaha were mainly from Valletta to the ferry in Čirkeva, and our goal was to see much more than that. Another option we contemplated was just renting a Bolt or an Uber, as we have heard that it is a quite popular option and quite easy if you don't like driving. During our trip, we saw lots of them around the island, but there still is a limit to where they would take you, and one should still travel light in order to enjoy it. There still was a question of getting around Gozo Island, which doesn't have such good bus or taxi coverage. So after long debates, for the trip of 4 people wanting to be comfortable, wishing to see remote areas, and to save time, we rented a car, despite its downsides. If there were fewer of us traveling, other options might have been more appealing. 2 people can even easily take a scooter. There are per-minute based rentals around the island like with a scoot. Driving in Malta to us was just what we expected. Complicated, but after getting used to the driving on the left side, not too different than other Mediterranean islands in terms of driving style. We knew we weren't going to Germany. But one area where the Maltese are definitely following the rules, it is the parking. We have learned it the hard way, just on our first drive from the airport. We went to see the famous Blue Grotto nearby, and parked at the tiny roadside parking near the viewpoint, which was full, so our car was slightly closer to the bus stop, but the parking lines were very worn out, so it was unclear to us. And guess what? After going to see the view for 5 minutes, we came back to find a parking ticket of 23 euros. Well, on the bright side, it was very easy to pay the fine with all the information written on the ticket. After this, we double-checked every spot we parked at. Okay, let's move on to the actual sightseeing in Malta. On our first day, we arrived in the country at 10:30 a.m., so we had almost a full day ahead. We thought it would be best to first see the places that are on the southeast side of the island, where the airport is located too. First, we went to see the Blue Grotto, and after that little parking and sightseeing adventure at the viewpoint, we went to see the small town nearby, where there are boat rentals to go see the grotto from the sea. For 10 euros per person, we give a ride to the Blue Grotto and a few other interesting caves nearby. The boat service is not perfect, but we are the only ones there, and we are fast. The views were definitely worth the ride, but the boatman we got seemed too much in a rush to get it over with. He was barely stopping anywhere, and the whole trip took like probably less than 15 minutes, while we saw other boats from the same company take much more time to stop at those beautiful places. So I guess it all depends on luck of what you'll get. Just 2 kilometers from the Blue Grotto, there is another interesting place to see, Hagar Qim Archaeological site. But as we were tired from the flight, we didn't stop there on our first day. Instead, we went to Marsaxlokk fishing village for lunch. Marsaxlokk is quite a lovely place, taking up the coast around a small bay. It's famous for its fishing boats scattered all across the bay, which reminded me a bit of the bay near the citadel in Alexandria, Egypt, but of course at a much smaller scale. And the Maltese boats are unique, very colorful and pretty. The town has dozens of fish restaurants to choose from at the bay, as well as a small touristic market full of souvenirs, ranging from the typical kitsch to local crafts and unique pieces. I found some lovely earrings made from local cactus fibers. To be fair, Malta seems to have more cacti than trees. Anyway, after having a walk along the bay and lunch at one of the fish restaurants, which took more time than expected, we went by car to St. Peter's Pool nearby to finish our day there. St. Peter's Pool is a very popular cliff jumping spot, but we were not so brave to do that, especially with such big waves on that day. There are little ladders to get into the water, which we used as well, but at another pool nearby, which of course wasn't as busy. But the real beauty of this place to us was the cliff formations and tide pools in the area. There are a lot of interesting shapes and countless little pools, dried up salt as well. The next day we dedicated ourselves to sightseeing, and without a rush we explored Mdina and Hagar Qim Archaeological site, the one we skipped on our first day. Hagar Qim is a megalithic temple complex which is around 4,000 or 5,000 years old and is among the most ancient religious sites on earth. Of course, it is on the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, along with another ancient temple in Malta, Halsaflieni Hypogeum. We didn't visit that one, as visiting is limited and tickets have to be bought months in advance. I love how Hagar Qim is situated by the sea on top of tall cliffs. That was an interesting spot to explore, although not much is known about the sites. Nevertheless, there also is an interesting indoor museum exhibition, and the audio guides are free. If you're not a fan of museums and history, but stuck with traveling with those who do, like there was someone in my group, then you can enjoy the surrounding nature through hiking while others go to the temples. There are some hiking routes around Hagar Qim with great views of the cliffs and the sea, and you can walk quite close to the temples even if you don't buy the entry tickets. Our next stop and the main attraction of the day was Mdina. What can I say after visiting it? Mdina is probably my favorite town in Malta. It's simply beautiful at every corner, and we didn't want to leave, so we spent the rest of the day there. What really helped with that great feeling is that car traffic is very limited there, compared with the rest of the island. Mdina is a fortified medieval city, and it used to be the capital of Malta until 1530. It is situated atop a hill almost at the center of the island, and it looks spectacular. Today we can roam its quiet streets as well as enjoy the views from the top of the city walls. As a fan of Game of Thrones, I also enjoyed recognizing some places from the first season of the show. Mdina has plenty of museums, restaurants, and some great souvenir shops. Malta is famous for its glassworks and ornamental silver crafts called filigree. One of our goals on this day was to find some of those, and Medina definitely had some. We found amazing glass artworks and filigree jewelry here to buy. But if you want more than that, then you can go just 2 kilometers outside of Medina, where there is a park and artisan village called Ta'ali, with lots of workshops. We had plans to go there, but as we did quite a shopping spree in one of the glass shops in Medina, it was enough for us. For lunch, we stopped at probably the most popular spot in Medina, the Fontanella Tea Garden. We picked it primarily for the views, but of course the restaurant gets very crowded and there are queues too. So not everyone gets to sit at the best spot, but the other side has lovely town views as well. Despite the fact that the place is extremely touristic, we were pleasantly surprised with quick service and large portions of delicious food. Malta also has a very popular street food to try called pastizi. We bought some in Rabat, the bigger city just outside the gates of Medina. They are a very filling, savory snack made of phyllo-like dough and usually stuffed with peas or ricotta cheese. The third day we dedicated to exploring Gozo. Gozo is the second largest island in Malta, and considering that the main island of Malta is tiny, this one is even more so. But I think I liked Gozo the most from this trip, along with Medina. The general vibe here is more relaxed, not crowded. Victoria Old Town has a more local feel than Valletta or Medina. Of course, the star of the island is its nature, those beautiful cliffs, salt pans, and farmland. If one would have a few days to spare, Gozo can be easily explored by foot, but one day with a car was not enough for us, as we wanted to savor every spot we went to. When it comes to driving in Gozo, it is even more complicated than in Malta. Just as we thought that the roads couldn't get more narrow in Malta, Gozo proved us wrong. Most roads here are barely enough even just for one car. Despite that, I still must say that Gozo is well worth more than a day trip if you want to fully enjoy it. Here are some highlights from our day in Gozo. Victoria is the capital of the island and it has a cute old town, which is still filled with local life to be noted. The narrow streets are interesting to roam around, and apart from the main square, it is not that busy. The most popular spot to visit here is the Citadel, a small walled city on top of a hill where you can get 360-degree views of the whole island. It is kind of a similar idea as Medina, but on a smaller scale. Once the heat of the day came at noon, we went straight to the seaside. Ramla Beach is one of the few sandy beaches in the whole country, and it was a must-visit on our list. Not only is Ramla Beach in such a beautiful setting between the cliffs and crystal-clear water, it also stands out with its orange-colored sand. Another nice thing here is that you can hike up or drive around the hill nearby to have some awesome views of the beach from Mixta Cave at the top. Another spot that is quite interesting to have a look while in Gozo is the salt pans outside Marsaxlokk town. Salt pans are where locals have been producing sea salt for centuries, and if you come in working season during the summer, you can see the work in action too. The salt pans are not the only interesting thing here. The rock formations all around this area are almost alien-like. As daylight was disappearing quickly, we had to skip a lot of potentially cool spots on our list in order to make it on time for sunset at Dueira. I guess that's one of the downsides of traveling in autumn and winter. The days are definitely shorter here. Anyway, as we only had a light lunch in Victoria, we were starving by sunset, so our main goal was to visit the food truck at Dueira Bay for the best-rated calamari on the island. When we reached it, we were pleasantly surprised that the calamari vendors were actually a young Polish couple who lived there in Gozo. Their calamari was just perfect and the views were priceless. So, more about the place. Originally, this spot used to be probably the most famous spot in the whole Malta, as this is the place where the Azure vendor used to stand, a beautiful rock arch which collapsed into the sea in 2017. But even without it, this place is wonderful. There are beautiful cliffs, a small inland bay which connects to the sea through a cave, the Blue Hole which is a cool spot for swimming, and plenty of interesting rock formations and tide pools. Oh, didn't I mention that this spot is just great at sunset? On our fourth day, and after enough driving practice through the countryside, we finally went to visit Valletta. Valletta is officially the smallest capital city in the European Union. What does that actually translate to? For example, if you take Vilnius, separate its old town and call it another name. But in Malta, it is easier to separate Valletta from the rest of the island. It is built on a peninsula, or to be more precise, carved out from a rock. It is surrounded by bays from both sides and more cities on the other side. All this creates a truly impressive harbor area for which Valletta is famous. Personally, I thought that the city definitely is unique with its architecture. The harbor views from everywhere and those cute Maltese balconies. But of course, the city is very crowded with tourists. Nowhere else on the island did it feel that crowded. Thus, Mdina and Victoria cities felt much more peaceful. Anyway, it is definitely a must-go to see Valletta. It is well worth the hype. I wish I had more time to explore its museums. During this trip, I only had a chance to enter the St. John's Cathedral. Well, what can I say about it? If you want to visit only one place in Valletta, it has to be the cathedral. Even if you don't like churches, it will not leave you indifferent. While from outside it looks basic, its interiors are just majestic. As an art enthusiast, my main purpose of visiting the place was going to see the paintings of Caravaggio inside. There are two of them from the time when Caravaggio lived in Malta, but Caravaggio aside, the whole cathedral is a true piece of art here. Every centimeter of its interiors is masterfully decorated. Paintings, marble sculptures everywhere, even the floor. It almost felt like a sin to even step on its floors. A little tip for visiting the cathedral: to avoid queues, you can buy the ticket online, even on the spot, and easily skip the line. Another thing that everyone goes to have a look at is the saluting battery, which takes place 2 times a day, at noon and at 4 p.m. That's probably the most popular thing to see in Valletta, at least considering the number of people who come to watch. People come to take the spots at the upper Baraka garden probably half an hour before the salute, so keep that in mind. We found it easier to pay a few euros to see it up close and have a look at a small museum there. It's quite fun to have a look at it, a little remnant from the rich history of Valletta. The Upper Baraka Garden is also a perfect spot to have wide views of the harbor and the 3 cities on the other side. The garden itself is lovely too, with a fountain and lots of sculptures. But don't expect it to be a large park. This is all there is of it. The scale of everything in Malta is quite different than what people from most other countries are used to. We also went to the Lower Baraka Garden, but that one is even smaller and was under renovation at the time. In general, Valletta is amazing for a walk, with beautiful architecture everywhere. We also found it really fun to stop in one of those restaurants on the stairs. Of course, the food and drinks there are more expensive than in other places, but that's the price for the fantastic vibe. One of our priorities for what to do in Valletta was to have a boat ride through the harbor. For that, we planned a ferry trip to Birgu, one of the 3 cities on the other side. When in Valletta, it's definitely worth taking a boat, well, anywhere. But going to one of the 3 cities gave us the opportunity to see some of the smaller old cities and to have wide views of the harbor and Valletta itself from afar. For the trip, we wanted to take the larger ferry, but the timings of the boat didn't suit us, so we resorted to those small wooden boats. There was only minimal waiting time for those. The boats are tiny, but somehow we didn't flip in the turbulent waters. Overall, it was quite a fun, short ride to Birgu. When in Birgu, we found that the town was preparing for a candlelight festival in the evening. We were not able to stay for that, but it was lovely to see all those preparations. In general, it is a lovely place for a walk around the old town and the walls by the harbor. There also is an old fort with a museum inside. For our final day in Malta, we wanted just nature and the beach to enjoy. Malta is not blessed with plenty of sandy beaches. After all, the whole country is just a rock in the sea. But a few lovely beaches do exist, and one of the most scenic ones is Riviera Beach with beautiful rock formations around it. Golden Bay, probably the most famous beach, is just around the corner from there as well. These beaches were the main reason we stayed on this side of the island. Golden Bay is one of the most popular beaches in Malta, and it is quite accessible too, making it easy to reach for the elderly and families with young kids. The beach itself is not very large, but it is sandy, clean, with beautiful clear waters, and has all the facilities. Personally, I would have preferred to spend the day at the Riviera beach next to this one, which is larger and with fewer people, but the amount of stairs to go down there was too much for my mother, so we made a base at Golden Bay. But I still wanted to explore that area as the nature there is very pretty. For that, I went for a hike between the beaches and to the cliffs nearby. Everything is so close there. The rock formations and the hills behind the Riviera beach are just amazing. Actually, Malta is full of wonderful places for hikes. I see now why many people choose to come here in winter too. The island is perfect for walking along the cliffs with scenic views. Later in the day, we also visited the Dingley Cliffs, but I found the place confusing, at least from Google Maps. The place marked on the map doesn't actually provide any good views of the cliffs. We drove more north along the road by the cliffs to find some great panoramic views. From there, we also saw a trail along the cliffs too, which could be fun to explore. We finished our day and vacation, for that matter, at our lovely Meliaha town. The area around the church is very lovely with plenty of restaurants, and it was just the perfect spot for our last meal in Malta, because we had to leave early the next day. We picked a fish restaurant called Liska, and we were quite satisfied with the service there too. So this is my experience in Malta. We had a blast traveling here. The island is beautiful, compact, rich in history, and it is easy to communicate with everyone in English. I think 5 days is quite a good amount of time for a first visit, but even so, I feel that I could easily have spent more time here for hikes in nature and visiting museums. What do you think about Malta? Let me know in the comments. I hope you have found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.